Hey guys, how's it going? This here's Tracilyn. I'm also known as VCAT, and believe it or not, I am actually here in the practically the center of Las Vegas, down on the Strip. Over here is Planet Hollywood. I'm on the Cosmopolitan Bridge. This is a place that I wrote Miss Las Vegas back in 2012, probably around the end of May, beginning of June. Anyway, this is a spot over here where this guy's standing. But you know, there's something pretty wild that happened to me when I was over here as well. Probably pretty much right around this spot on the bridge. Right around here. I'm looking forward to sharing my story once I get situated in a place to stay. But this is the bridge that I was on the last night that I visited Las Vegas in 2012. And I had a very unique experience. And I've told a lot of people that I've almost died that night. So I came back later on, early in the morning, and I played up here in the center of the bridge. I stood, I had my little Las Vegas hat on that was given to me. And I sang for a few hours. And then I left. I went back to, I went back to Pennsylvania, then New Jersey for a little while on the East Coast for about a month or so before I ended up back in Dayton, Ohio in July. So I'm not going to talk too much out here because there's a lot of people around here. I want to wait till a little bit later on today after I get situated to share the Las Vegas years and catch you up to date now as to how I ended up here. Again, I never thought I'd come back, to be honest with you. Take care. Hey guys, how's it going? This here's Tracilyn. I'm also known as VCAT, and I am at a hotel room here in Dayton, Ohio, where I made a couple pages of catch-up that I want to do, primarily for myself. I mentioned in a few videos that I also have a son that I haven't seen since he's 8 months old. And I think it's really important that if I could leave anything else behind for him, it would be my life story from my perspective. I shared with you all the way up until the first time I went to Las Vegas. I think it will be included in this video footage from Las Vegas the second time around, which that totally was unexpected. I didn't think I was going to be going there ever again. But in my efforts to find warmth when I was living in hotel rooms, I ended up in California, and since I was in California, I decided to go up to Las Vegas for a couple weeks and had a good time. Whole other perspective and experience. The second time around was much more pleasurable. Maybe it was in my head, maybe it was just a whole other atmosphere, I don't know. But maybe I'll share a little bit with you once I get warmed up here a little bit. I'm not really in the mood to do this, so I'm looking forward to sharing this and getting it behind me forever. Before I left for Las Vegas, I was working at Walmart. I was a cashier. And can I say during that time, I was also reading all sorts of literature books, but I was mainly consumed with two ministries that I was involved in, as far as to watching their videos, listening to their audios, reading their books, their postings that they had on Facebook and stuff like that. And I want to keep on saying that and stress to you, whoever's listening to this, the importance of being careful of what you allow yourself to believe. Because if it grabs hold of you and you can continue to go through your life believing a lot of this stuff, you will eventually, if you apply everything under their teachings to your own personal life, you will find out, more so than not, that it's a bunch of lies, and it'll mislead you into some really challenging life situations. I don't want to talk too much about my experience at working at Walmart, but I will say this: it has probably been one of the most pleasurable positions that I have had working for somebody else, because I had the opportunity to use a lot of my entertainment abilities in doing so. Besides bagging groceries, I would have to say that, that wasn't even too bad, but it was repetitive, and I'd rather have been doing something else with my life during those times, but I learned a lot while I worked there. And can I just say that my brain during that time was so filled with everything else that I was reading and everything, that even at work I was applying that, and I would walk into the store and purposely put on kind of like a costume smile and presentation, and leave whatever I was going through in my personal life behind when I walked through the door, which is a good thing, because I didn't want to take anything out on anybody else while I was there, of course, for a lot of different reasons. But during that whole time that I was working at Walmart, and I was studying other things, can I tell you that looking back now, I realize how stupid I was for believing, because I'm believing different things, like maybe I'm going to meet somebody somehow, some way, through my line of work, and, whatever will take place. Will I meet other musicians? Will I meet somebody who has a studio or has similar passions? Will I meet a guy and start dating somebody? Will I make friends while I'm there? And things like that. And I met a lot of people, a lot of nice people that I ended up, sociably becoming kind of friends. But can I tell you that I was just pretty much stuck in one place? I was a cashier for over a year, and I did try. My main goal was, I really wanted to get out of Ohio and into a bigger city. And I figured that would be a great opportunity. I mean, there's stores all over the planet, pretty much so. And, my main goal was to move up a little bit and move out. Whether that would entail because I met somebody, or because maybe I made a connection in another city with somebody I could share living expenses with. There's all kinds of different things and different ways that life could have transpired. And I did take effort. For anybody else who works there should know that it is quite challenging. You hear a lot of testimonies of where people work there for 6 months, they work there for a year, and they're in all these different positions. They're being recognized for their talents, etc., and they're kind of being shifted around to different sections of the store, and they're starting to move up at least a little bit or move out to somewhere else. So, of course, I did a lot of investigating, and I talked to a lot of people. But can I tell you that I was still there as a cashier when I ended up quitting? And the reason why I quit is because I realized that realistically I'll never be able to, independently take care of myself, getting my own place, or raising the finances to get SRS and stuff like that. I mean, because, it's pretty close to minimum wage, and you're only getting a few hours a week. And I started realizing, life is passing by. I'm not getting anywhere here with this. I tried. No matter how hard I prayed, no matter how hard I tried and reached out to other people, I don't want to say that there was always judgment against me, but let's just say for anybody that's out there, it can be very challenging to find a job that's suited and right for you, and financially can help you to navigate your way out of somebody else's home and into your own kind of thing. So I was never good at piecing things together like that, So because I didn't feel that I was smart enough to figure it out all on my own, which is something that I heard a ministry lady say often, stop trying to figure everything out and believe, you know. And can I tell you, that was a setup for disaster. Believing doesn't do anything. You got to have brain smart, and you got to make the right choices for yourself in order to move yourself around to whatever area of life that you're going through. So I'm stuttering right now. I'm not real, like I said, I'm not really in the mood to do this, but I'm going to continue to babble. During that time, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but I started meeting some pretty amazing people that would regularly come up and talk to me. Some of them were very supportive. I spoke, you know, about my heart's desires and different things I wanted to do, and there was quite the few people that would come into my line on a regular basis and, you know, forward some encouraging words to me. But in the long run, I was miserable because I didn't want to be, I'm not the kind of person that wants to be stuck in one position. And I've learned lately that I don't really like living in a hamster cage atmosphere where you're just going back and forth all the time. You go home, you wake up, you go to work, you go back home, you wake up, you go to work. And I mean, that's just a life pattern and cycle that a lot of us do, but it doesn't work for me. I like change and I need change. And I realized that on my travels of the last 3 months. I love to go to different areas of the country. I used to want to travel the world, but can I tell you that no matter what would happen in my life now, I would never do that. I would never leave the United States because of all the things that I've learned during my travels just being here. Got to be honest with you, I'd be too scared to leave the country. Most certainly too scared to leave the country. So at some points, looking back, I think it might have been in April, but I could be wrong, of 2012. It might have started more in February. I had made a couple postings online that I had a pretty amazing dreams. I started having all kinds of dreams. People were coming to me in my sleep and talking to me. I think I mentioned about Ronnie James Dio. He sat on the edge of the bed with me in my sleep, and he had a long talk with me. And when he walked out my bedroom door, he told me that, you know, that he liked my little VCAT sign. And right now I didn't write down a list of the different kinds of dreams I had, but can I tell you that they were happening to me pretty regularly. And because of all the other spiritual encounters I had, things like even with lightning or my red velvet ice cream, I'm actually believing that somehow, some way, there is a God and that He does love me and He does have a calling on my life, and that there will be change and things will take place, whatever that meant. But I did have this one dream where it was a whole entire picture of Las Vegas at night, and I heard God's voice. At least it sounded like God's voice. Could have been anybody's voice, but it sounded more like a very caring, loving father kind of voice. And He was asking me, you know, why are you not going to the place that I've been asking you to go? Do you not trust me? Do you not have faith? Well, that dream not only happened to me once, but the exact identical one happened to me probably about 2 weeks later. I don't remember everything that was said in both dreams, but I do know that everything was identical except for at the end. And I can't remember if that's when the voice said, you know, don't you believe me? Don't you have faith? You know, kind of thing. And this was bugging me because I got to be honest, I didn't care for my circumstances. I didn't feel at that time that I was in the environment, the home environment that I wanted to be in. Unfortunately for me, I had a vision of my life being a lot different. So even down to the location and the job that I had, and the home that I was living in. You know? Not to mention I want to transition and go through, you know, I saw myself having a family eventually and stuff like that, and obviously it didn't seem like anything was moving anywhere. Well, when this happened, I had a talk with someone that is very close to me, and I explained to them, I cried. I said, I don't know exactly why this is happening to me. At that time, I didn't understand why these dreams are coming to me, but I explained to him, and of course, obviously everybody that I would talk to and share about stuff like this, because I didn't have no one close that was non-judgmental and wouldn't laugh at me, of course they laughed at me. So there was all kinds of things being said about me being crazy and, you know, losing my mind and all that stuff, and maybe, obviously, I can say today, maybe that's the case. Maybe my mind is blown from all the things that I've been through and just life stresses that we all go through. Maybe I'm just not capable of handling them. And I can accept that. What's real and what's real, what is not real, I don't know. But I expressed very strongly that I played back on everything else that I've been through throughout my life journey, like I said, including the spiritual things that happened and the different encounters that happened to me whenever I would travel somewhere. So why would this not be, or could this be, really God testing me? Is there some reason unknowingly that He wants me, or she, or whatever it is, wants me to go out to Las Vegas? Is there somebody there that I'm supposed to meet? You know, I don't know. He didn't say, the God in my dream did not tell me exactly what to expect when I go there, but I was asked. And can I tell you that I wrestled with this for a while? After the first one, I kind of shook my head and I kind of talked to myself about it, prayed about it. And when that second one came, and after wrestling with it for a few weeks, I told my friend that I had to quit my job and go. Because if I don't, it's going to torment me for the rest of my life. And can I tell you, it didn't matter. For anybody else that may experience this, it's going to torment me for the rest of my life anyway. Because when I went out there, I felt pretty much like I was left hanging. You know, like somebody played a dirty trick on me. So despite the fact that I obviously seen myself in another occupation at some time, or despite the fact that I saw my life differently, for that to happen to me kind of sent my life out of control. When I went out to Las Vegas, I was there for probably about a month, and I realized it's time for me to get out of here. If I don't, I'm going to end up on the street. And can I tell you, this is my first experience. My first experience when I was out there, of course, because I don't know how else and to take care of myself but through entertainment. I'm an entertainer, and I gotta use everything that I got, all my talents and stuff, the way I look or the way I present myself, same with music or whatever. I gotta use what I got to survive. I mean, really, technically, that's why they were given to us. So I went out, of course, as an adult entertainer. On the side, I changed my name that time to something totally different than I ever used before. And then I went out and I mingled. And I met some people. But can I just say that business wasn't doing so good, and things weren't beginning to happen. I put ads out on like Craigslist and stuff. You know, the only thing I could think of is looking for like a personal assistant position of whatever sort, somebody who has children or somebody who needs a helper, you know, maybe an elderly lady or a business person that needs somebody that they can trust, etc., etc. And I got all kinds of insults back in my replies. I wish I would have saved them so I could read some of them to you. But even down to the point before I left, and that kind of disgusted me, and I figured it was about time to leave, when somebody responded, a lot of times people will say, why do you tell people that you're a transsexual? And I'll tell you why, because eventually, sooner or later, people are going to find out. One way, I don't know, there's a million ways they can find out, but they will find out. And when they do, it's always better if they know, especially the people you're living with. I don't have to walk around and tell everybody I meet that. However, the people closest to me, it's very important that, number one, they aren't judgmental about that. Big whoop, who cares about what history you have when it comes to that, being a transgendered person, or who cares what's between your legs kind of things. In my situation, that's what it is. Who cares? You know, I don't want to get started on that, but can I tell you, pretty much they were responding back with replies about whether or not I'm a pedophile because of that. You know, a lot of people, I realize, because of the bug going around with people, you know, talking negatively and gossiping about everything, I would have to say, and this might upset transsexuals, but more so than not, transsexuals are simply looked down upon the eyes of 80% of society. That's why over 90% of transsexuals live in poverty. And the fortunate ones who make their transition, they have a master plan, they either have a financial supporter or they have made their money in their life and they made the transition and then they went somewhere and they blended in. And they just made that choice to live their life as their intergender, period. I meet a lot of people, and this last time that I was out in Vegas, I met somebody who brought that up to me about why do I even bother telling anybody? And I gotta admit, I get to the point in my life, I'm so tired of explaining why I do what I do when I do it to new relationships all the time. My relationships keep having a turnover for a lot of different reasons. It's not a healthy match, because if it was, the relationships wouldn't be turning over. But every time I end up meeting somebody new and we start talking, they start asking questions that I'm tired of answering. I don't even want to talk about them anymore. I'm sharing my life story because I felt it's very important for myself. It's been a healing process, and I do have a son that I don't know for sure if he's mine, but I do want him to hear this. As well as I'm hoping it'll educate someone somehow and it'll be of benefit. I'm going to turn off my heater here a little bit. Okay. So I'm not really in the mood to talk today, but I'm going to do the best I can here. At some point I started walking through Las Vegas on the Strip. And I started realizing that there's a lot of street performers that are out there and stuff. And because I reflected back on times that I have taken the opportunity to busk, is what they play in your guitar, for tips on the street. I used to do it on the boardwalk or what have you, just for fun, because I did it as a business and venues and stuff. I figured, you know what, maybe I just have to be willing to, you know, step out here myself and play a little bit. If I can just see if I can raise any kind of finances, I can extend this stay, because I got to be honest, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay. I knew when I was there that I wanted to stay. And I can't explain that feeling, but maybe you've been there. If you've ever went on a journey somewhere, you end up going to a city and you know, it's just everything about it just sets you on fire. I'm an entertainer. I love masses of people. I love hot weather, you know, and just, I could just go on and on and on. There's a lot. Now, the Strip is a strip, and it's a business-oriented place, you know, for people to come or what have you. What do they call that? Like a tourist kind of area. But I really didn't give the opportunity or get the opportunity or allow myself the opportunity to see what is life like for the people who actually live in Las Vegas. I didn't even learn that until the second time around that I was touring around the country. And I've realized more so than not the importance for anybody who tours around to wherever, different countries or what have you, that it's always an amazing experience to see how the people who actually live in wherever that is, how they live their daily lives. Because that, if you would be considering, like I would be considering actually living there, then what would I'd get a better vision for what my daily life and routine would be and consist of. The day I got into that hotel room, I remember falling onto bed and almost crying, but I was so happy because it's been quite some time since I had my own place. And I'll tell you what, when you get to the point of having your own place, you got a lot of responsibilities and things like that, but you become a dependent after being independent for a lot of years and taking years and years. It took me, into my 30s before I finally got the apartment that was right for me. I went through a lot of shifting, even after I did have my own finances and I had a job or a business and just living in different environments. I never understood things so much as to why I am myself and moving around, but reflecting back, it all makes sense. And it took me until my 30s before I had the ideal place that was for me. I went through a lot to get that place. It wasn't just about money. It was trying out a lot of different apartments, a lot of different relationships that went sour, and I can go on and on and on and on, and finally I get a home that I can be Tracilyn when I'm indoors and make my music 24 hours, 7 days a week, or sleep 24 hours, 7 days a week. When I lost that home and I started living, I became a dependent, needing other people to take care of me, needs that I used to be able to take care of. I faced head-on with the biggest challenges in life, some of the biggest challenges of life. If you don't follow under people's expectations and their idea of how a human being should live their daily life and what they should be doing on their free time, and let me tell you something. It's a nightmare that if a blessing doesn't come your way, you will never get out of. Because more so than not, at least in my situation, I'm a very free spirit. I don't smile too much when I'm living with other people because I have to oppress a lot about myself in order to do that. It's not about anyone being better or what it is just an unhealthy match. Because if I was living in an environment that was healthy for me, then I wouldn't have to oppress my happiness. I wouldn't have to stop doing the things in life that I'm passionate about on my free time. But in this situation, what I've realized before I went to Las Vegas is the reasons why I was so sad is because I was pretty much penned up in my bedroom. There was a high turnover of a lot of different personalities moving in and out of the home. It's a nightmare as far as to just getting to know other people's boundaries and you start learning that, I can't necessarily let myself fully be me because if I do, I upset other people, I'm disturbing to them. And unfortunately for me, I'm a musician, and it's really hard for any musician, depending on their situation. If they can't provide an environment for themselves, it's hard to step into other people's worlds and make noise. In my case, in my situation, I've learned that my happiness dies instantly when I'm not doing the things in life I'm passionate about. That's what sets me on fire. Why I want to get out of bed is because I want to write another song. But if I'm not writing another song that's happy, it's because I'm not happy. And it's because there's a lot of my other areas in my life that I'm oppressing. I've become a very miserable soul. And now I start taking that out on other people that I'm living around. It's not fair to either parties. And I think if we're all honest, that's what we all end up, that we fall into that at times. If we're oppressing things about ourselves to try to keep peace in the house, because some people don't like to see you smile for some reason, then guess what? You're going to become an angry person, and eventually you're going to start to explode on things. I've already shared all this up to that point. We're talking about Las Vegas the first time around. So I decided to start playing my guitar out on the streets. I realized instantly that I didn't really like playing at night. I didn't like playing at night because it's a whole nother crowd, not necessarily there, but no matter what city you're in, you know, you have your business-oriented crowd is usually during the day as far as to the business people who are passing by you, or children, more family-oriented. And I really take a liking to that. I love children. I love to entertain them. And for some reason, I really get along well with people that are considered more business. You know, the 9-to-5ers, if you will, 8-to-4, what have you. Because I was in the music business for so long, at least 7.5 years, and I had to go through all the environments and stuff I did as a kid growing up, I deal with it a lot better today than I did even back there in 2012. But can I just tell you that I don't like to be around, I don't mind people socially drinking and stuff, but I don't like to be around what I want to call, in a nice way, is the klutzy alcoholics. You know, staggering all over the place, breathing on you, and there's all kinds of things that end up happening. And sometimes it can get out of hand, out of control. And I don't want to be on the streets trying to defend myself all the time or getting into arguments with somebody who had too much to drink. I'd rather be doing things that I love in life for fun, for both people, you know, myself and the people that I'm entertaining. It's more enjoyable for me. So usually by nighttime, a lot of the street folk would start coming out as well. You know, they're panhandling and what have you. And there was a few personalities that were there that were very challenging for me. And I was kind of like targeted simply because I have a very soft spirit. Some of you may disagree with that right now, but I had to toughen up a lot starting that day. The spirit that I became would never survive on the streets. You know, even now. It's an amazing situation to be in. And you don't really realize human nature as strongly until you are on the streets. And I never had to make a living like that before on the streets. And I'll tell you what, that it has a lot of fun moments, but it's also a place that I don't wish anybody to be, you know. So while I'm there, you know, I just want to keep this short and simple and just say that some of the guys that were out there were very territorial over the places that they play, and they feel that there's certain people they can bully around. And back then I allowed it to happen a little bit more, obviously, because I don't want to fight, and you know, I'm really there to have a good time, and of course, like anyone else, trying to make a little bit of money. And you know, I started getting into arguments about things, even to the point that some guy mentioned that if I didn't let him use my guitar, that I was going to be receiving some kind of, you know, he didn't say it in these words, but basically I was going to be penalized for that somehow, some way. He was going to get me. Near the end of my stay there in Las Vegas, of course, through my depression, I'm not much of a drinker anymore, so I don't really turn to alcohol. But anyone who knows me knows that I will smoke a little marijuana every once in a while. And the thing is, when I started falling into depression and I was getting, you know, I was reaching out through all these emails and I was receiving the messages back that I was, or the insults, because I got to be forward with people. You know, I'm a transsexual lady, but this is a deal. And I tell you what, people are really harsh on that. You know, but it's better to be forward than to actually go through and live with somebody and then they find out. It can be a really ugly situation. So you be forward right up front. I realized that wasn't going to work. I started reaching out to, you know, guys posting ads and stuff, and I gotta say, I met like one or two really nice guys. They weren't in the area though. They weren't in the area, and who knows what would have ended up happening anyway. But in the end, mostly, like I've talked about in other videos, transsexuals are just looked at as a sexual fetish. And I'm 41. All that stuff is outgrown to me. You know, really, in all honesty, by that time I was already ready for something serious. And I've talked to people about that. You know, I take my life a little more serious than that. I don't want to just play sexual games with people and be used for that anymore. You know, if there's going to be a gentleman in my life that would enjoy sharing time with me when it comes to that, it's much different for me. You know, I don't just believe in myself. I don't care what other people do, and I used to do things differently too, but I'm past the point of just meeting somebody to do that. You know, I want to get, basically, even by that time, I want to get my life straightened out, and I really would much prefer to be with somebody who's elder, like an elderly lady that needs somebody to drive her to the doctors or something. Maybe, you know, she's just, maybe her husband passed away or something, and, you know, she wants to stay home. She doesn't want to live in an assisted care situation, and all she needs is like a friend and somebody to help her do small errands and drive her to Walmart or what have you, and help clean up around the house and stuff, and she can provide room and board, you know. There's all kinds of wonderful situations in this world. It's very unfortunate for me because I talk to other people that have had wonderful experiences in doing that, and then they have their private life that they can go and live. In my situation, to live like in New Orleans or, you know, not necessarily Las Vegas, but to live somewhere else where there's other opportunities for me to use my talents, to actually be with somebody that, let me just say that it has no sexual obligations whatsoever. I'm there to help them. That is what would be best for me, because I'm a firm believer that if there is a gentleman for me personally, I want to date him, get to know him, and let our moments manifest into other experiences. I'm beyond the let's meet, let's have dinner and then go home and I'll never see you again kind of thing. That's just such a waste of time, and it's actually pretty scary. Me personally, yeah, I still meet to this day guys that because I will use protection and never without, they simply don't want anything to do with me, and I gotta say, move on to somebody else, you know? That's not my thing. Maybe that's why I have been blessed, you know, in many other areas. So I started smoking, and can I tell you that there was a gentleman who I actually really started to like, he was considered homeless, but I'm learning that a lot of these people who were supposedly homeless were not homeless. They had places to live, whether it was in other states, other cities, or somewhere right outside of town, but they're using that for whatever reason, and then they panhandle, they get money, and a lot of it, not everyone, but there are people out there that do it, and then they just go buy alcohol with it, or they buy their drugs, or whatever they do with it. But I started realizing that while I was there that first month, because I started busking probably 2 weeks into it, and I'm trying to figure out the laws and rules and regulations, and sometimes the cops would ask you to move, or, you know, you have arguments with the panhandlers or the other street performers. Let me tell you something, it's just not a place that I would choose to be on purpose, you know. I did have a lot of wonderful times later on back in Ohio, but at this time, I'm just thinking, man, all I'm trying to do is survive another day and try to stay out here as long as I can, because God called me out here. And I gave up my job, and I gave up everything that there was, and I came running full force after taking time to think about it, rethink about it. You know, I had to do this. And a lot of people, they can laugh at me, they can do whatever. I don't really want to stress too much on it, but can I just say, after everything that I've been through, and I can lay down actual facts and show, why would I not believe if God is calling me out? Maybe this is my opportunity to show him how much I trust and do have faith that he really did have a calling on my life, for whatever. You know, obviously, it never turned out anything remotely close to what I thought, or I wouldn't end up back here in a hotel room in Ohio, living on a credit card. So see what happened when I trusted and when I had faith in God? My life got worse. It did not get better. And it won't get better. Because that God doesn't exist. The reason those dreams ended up coming to me were simply because some people do this. I'd say a smaller percentage than not. But because all my leisure time was spent in either reading the Bible, reading the self-help books from Joyce Myers or Joel Osteen at Ministries, reading their postings, watching their videos, listening to their audios. I wanted so bad to get my head straight, and I wanted to start living a wonderful life like they talk about. That wonderful life, for some of us, now I'm not going to say everyone, for some of us is non-existent. Okay? It's non-existent for me. All right? There is no God that called me out there and then met me there. And, I mean, just think of it like this. Think of it like this right now. Just say, have the vision in your head of your dream fantasy of where it is that you would like to live. Can I tell you that if I were sitting right here, right now, and whoever it was, but just say it's me, and I told you, come out, just say it's down in, let's just say that it's in Chicago. You really want to go to Chicago for some reason, right? And I'm here and I'm telling you, encouraging you, come on out. Come on up to Chicago. What are you waiting for? Don't you trust me? Don't you have any faith in me? And we're talking about this for a while, and finally you get it. You know what? I've always wanted to live in Chicago, so I'm going to go up to Chicago. I'm going to do this because, let's just face it, I look around at my circumstances and I see my life, and how can it be any worse? It's a place that I've been wanting to go, right? So you end up going up to Chicago, only I'm not there. I'm nowhere to be found. Call me if you will. You can't even contact me. You go online, and the same video you were watching of me telling you, come on up to Chicago, that's all gone. Everything's gone. It's like somebody played a dirty trick on you. And it set you up for a total smack in the forehead. Okay, because that's what the way I describe it to people is it was like my head was smashed against the concrete. It was a horrible experience and feeling in my heart. You can only imagine how awful I felt during that time. So, meanwhile, these guys, some of them are just really starting to get nasty with me because in the beginning I would let some of the guys use my guitar, and then all of a sudden I decided, you know what, no, I'm here for me. I want to stay in Las Vegas. I don't want to leave. And I need to make money, which means I need to play, and it's my guitar. And can I tell you, this really disturbed some of the people that were there. So at one point, some guy actually, which is one of the guys I liked, he actually whispered into my ear that I'm going to get you when you least expect it. Basically, he threatened to kill me in his words. So you can imagine I'm out here in Las Vegas by myself, all these crazy emails and stuff I'm getting, and the different encounters that I'm having aren't the most pleasurable. I don't feel safe. I feel pretty much alone and scared, as anyone would probably be in that situation. So while I was there and this was going on, it was starting to peak out. I finally decided I wasn't making too much money busking, doing street performances there. I decided one day to sit down and write a song. I wrote Miss Las Vegas. About a week before then, during my first walk through the Strip, I actually wrote, what was it called? Until the Sun Rises. That was the first song I wrote. It's like a promotional song. And then the last few days I was there, right around the end of May, I started to write Miss Las Vegas. And I explained to people, it was really weird because I didn't know that Garth Brooks was there, but that's the person that I heard singing this song in my head. And it was my first experience writing a song in public, in a public place like that. And I was actually trying to get people to talk to me and stuff. And I would ask them, what kind of purse is that? Because I've seen a lot of people carrying around similar purses. Or what kind of shoes are those? What kind of dress is that? Where did you buy that dress? And can I tell you, more so than not, it was like people didn't even want to give me a time of day. I got to be honest. I'm not saying that, please don't take this the wrong way, but the people that I was reaching out to, it seemed that they were actually pretty snooty to me, thinking low of me. And they would just, a lot of them just totally ignored me every time I tried to talk to them. So, I didn't know what to say. I tried not to take it too personally. I have no idea what they're going through in their life. There's a lot of panhandlers and street musicians out there. They might not feel comfortable talking to us, period, as a whole. So I try not to take it too personally, but I got to say that, through my years of suffering from negative thinking and things like that, I perceived it as in they're thinking low of me, and I didn't care for that. Obviously, you wouldn't either. So I continued to write, and occasionally I'd meet one or two nice people. And at the end of the song, it took me 2 days to write, I actually sang to one of the other homeless people. They would usually come around and sit around me, and I would sing to them and stuff. That's how I started singing Bobby McGee, the one homeless guy. Well, he's not really homeless. Neither of them were, but they were while they were in Vegas, and they asked me if I would sing Bobby McGee. That's what started that up, is I did that for them because they really enjoyed it. They were older gentlemen. And, it felt good to have the guys sit around and listen to me play and stuff. What started to really weird them out is eventually I did tell them that I was a transsexual. And, of course, it didn't take long. They're going around telling everybody about it. And this is also starting to draw more negativity to me. Because now I'm a freak. I'm the freak out on the bridge in their eyes. I'm a freak, and I don't want to hard on that too much, but that's part of also of what started all of this to manifest into greater things, that I ended up fearing and things like that. So whenever I would walk back, and whenever it started getting dark out, and I started noticing there was more people who appeared to be drunk, I would head back to my hotel room because I was kind of scared. And I didn't want to be looking over my back all the time, but I did the whole way back to, to get into my car. I never told anybody I had a car or anything like that, but then I would drive back to my hotel room. And that's where I'd pretty much stay for the night. Whether I'd be working on that song or working through emails and stuff to see if there was anything else that I could do in order to stay there. It had to happen right around June 1st or 2nd. The one guy who I learned Bobby McGee for, and we used to walk around town a little bit together, and who I was thinking that if times got that bad, that maybe I could because he was a military person, so, he really knew survival. He knew how to survive. But I didn't realize that he had a serious alcohol challenge in his life. And I did have compassion for him with that, but in the same token, I noticed that when he would start drinking, he would get meaner. Not just that with me, but with people in general. He had things he was struggling with. And it didn't stop me from caring for him, but it made me wake up to the realization this is not a person that I want to be living on the streets with or hanging around. Be his friend, yes, but not necessarily, staying with him. So I tossed around all kinds of ideas. I kept praying. Nothing was happening. Nothing was happening except for it seemed like everything was spiraling down. And I was starting to lose my finances. So I was wavering whether or not I should leave. And if I do, what should I do? Should I go escort? Should I try to talk to my family members? I don't know what to do. But on the 1st or the 2nd of June of 2012, I was so depressed, and I was talking to the one guy about, getting stoned or whatever, if we could. And he said he was going to get something. Now, here's something that's really funny, and this continued on while I got here in Ohio. Before he showed up, I was on the bridge, on the Cosmopolitan Bridge for anybody who's been there, and I was playing We talked. He went and he did whatever he did. He's going to get some stuff. Just before he showed up, there was an older gentleman who was not from the streets. I could tell by the way he was dressed. When I was sitting down on the ground playing my guitar, he whispered down and he told me, "Don't smoke that stuff." And he walked away. Well, when this guy showed up, I didn't know what the other guy was really technically talking about. Obviously, I'm putting two to two together, but I did anyway. And can I tell you what? I seriously regretted it. Because that's what I was telling people before when I returned, that I almost died that day. I don't know what it was laced with. I don't really know what it was that I was smoking. I've never had anything like that done to me before. So when I did, it wasn't long after. I started realizing, because you start kind of having like a funny feeling in your head, like you're getting buzzed or something. I started noticing that when I was giving it to the other guy, that he was faking his hits. He wasn't doing it. You know, did you ever see anybody smoke a cigarette and they're just pretending, but no smoke's coming out and stuff? That's how this was. But I was at the point of being so depressed and stuff that I didn't care. And he kept encouraging me, do more, do more. And I did. And then eventually everything got so foggy. I've never felt this before. So foggy, and I could barely even sit up anymore. My face almost fell completely on the concrete. And everything was spinning around me. I felt like I was dying. It got to the point with myself that I explained to people before, that it was like I had my body, the spirit or what have you, inside of me was beginning to leave my body. And believe it or not, you know, whether it was in my conscience hallucinating or what have you, what's real, what isn't real, but there was these like white particles all over as far as I could see throughout Las Vegas, and they were just swirling around like it was these live things, what I would call energy. And it was just, and it looked very free, and it was just swooshing around all over the place, a whole lot of them. And they were all kind of, if you ever saw birds fly together, only this was a whole lot of little tiny white things. They were all going together. And I could actually see this white stuff that appeared to be leaving my body and going into it. And I gotta say, in all honesty, I felt like I was dying, and whatever is inside of us, the energy, the spirit, if you will, that it was trying to exit my body and go. And I don't want to get too busy with this right now, but I have studied other things where it talks about that not all of us dies, that different particles and cells and all that other stuff within us will, once it knows that the body's dying and it decides to depart, to kind of divide, it seeks out other life forms and it goes. So I don't want to get too heavy about that. Some of you may be thinking, well, this is really weird. It might be. This is what I remember seeing. This is what I remember experiencing very clearly. I can still hear it too. You know, it sounds like just a whole bunch of things flying around and all over the place. It was really weird, and I could barely keep my head up. I was basically falling flat on the ground. So obviously there was people who were walking around and staring at me, but there was two guys specifically that were standing there, very well dressed, and the one of them started coming over and asking me if I believed in Jesus Christ. If you believe in Jesus Christ, he kept whispering in my head, then stand and sing. If you believe in Jesus Christ, then stand and sing. If you believe in Jesus Christ, do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Yes or no? Do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord? Then stand and sing. Stand and sing. Now let me ask you something. Number one, why would a guy come up to me before I started to smoke whatever it was that was given to me and warn me not to smoke it? And number two, whether it was the same guy or not, because my eyes couldn't see right, you know, everything was foggy, why would he or somebody else be readily available to ask me if I believe in Jesus Christ, stand and sing? I'm almost dying there. Another guy that's standing across on the bridge, he's asking do you want me to call for help? Do you want me to call for help? And the guy that threatened earlier, who was a different guy, that not the same, that was the guy that I ended up singing Bobby McGee for, he actually ended up throwing something down because I was kind of like throwing up. He actually threw something down in my puke. And I don't remember what it was, but I remember looking down at it, and it was basically a sign that I told you I was going to get you. You can talk to different people who had different experiences, especially in wherever, but I mean, you hear of all kinds of things that happen in bigger cities and what have you, but also out in Las Vegas. There's just some people you just do not mess around with, and for whatever reason, I really upset him, one day, and I'm sure it's nothing really big that a lot of people normally wouldn't be able to work out or deal with, but in this situation I really hurt him and offended him. Later on we ended up talking. Again, I'm a very forgiving person. I still care about him. Why? After that happened, well, I just learned that you don't smoke anything from strangers. Especially if there's a rumor going around that they're going to get you. So now this guy is asking me to stand and sing if I believe in Jesus Christ. And I just remember it being that painful of an experience that my mind started registering back, what would I do at a time like this? And I would say, Jesus, please save me. The pain was too unbearable. There's a big part of me that wanted to die, but it hurt so much. So when I tell people about my near-death experience, I say that no matter how nice it is, as pleasant it may appear to be on the outside to other people, my experience, which other people would disagree, because I told you I had out-of-body experience already in other videos that I talked about. This was different. This was a dying process, and I gotta say that it was the most painful thing that I was so scared to go through it anymore. And with this guy right there, I'm thinking, yeah, there's the glitch, there's the idea, Jesus, please save me. And another guy is asking me if should I call an ambulance, whatever should I do? And I was so confused, do I want to die or do I want to live? And I ended up saying that because I wanted the pain to go away. It's not that I wanted to live or die, it's that I wanted the pain to go away. Because I couldn't stop throwing up. But it wasn't like food, it wasn't food coming up, it was horrible experience, And I'm thinking, what are they going to do? Are they going to arrest me? What's going to happen here? Through my experience of being in Las Vegas the first time, not the second time, but the first time around, I was scared, terrified to be there, especially by that point. So eventually, I don't know how much time I was there. This is late at night, by the way. And eventually, somebody helped me I finally got to the point. Actually, nobody did help me stand. They were standing around, but eventually I slowly started getting my strength to where I could stand after I said that. Very painful. And then everything kind of went away, but everything was still blurry and stuff. And I was so scared to go back to my car, but I didn't want anybody to come with me. And eventually that's what I did. Is I got into my car, I made it to my hotel room, and I kept praying in my head, Jesus, please help me. Don't let me die here. It would be a great humiliation for me to die on the bridge in Las Vegas. I don't want to die here. If I'm going to die, let me die in my hotel room at least. But to me, I know you say, well, why worry about it if you know you're dead? You're dead. What does it matter where you die? But the thing is because of everything that I've been through up to that point, and then talking to everybody that I was before I went to Las Vegas, the last thing I want to do is be there for a month and die on the bridge. I didn't want to die that way. If I'm going to die, I want to die with some kind of dignity, and I'd be okay with the hotel. I would have been okay if it would have been like a car accident or something like that. But to know that I was right there on the bridge, after everything that I've been through, and after all the attempts that I've made, and most importantly, believing that God was calling me out. I don't want to die here in front of all these people. That's not the way I want to go. So eventually I got back to my hotel room, thank goodness, and as soon as I walked in the door, I just said out loud, if I'm going to die, here's the place, and I fell flat on the bed and I just slept. I just slept and slept and slept. That night, I had a dream, and it was a pretty amazing dream. I got goosebumps now. I always tell you I get goosebumps when I'm telling the truth from what I perceived it as. But I had a dream, and that dream was, that night, that I was at a train with my suitcases. And there was somebody seeing me off on a train. And through that dream, and by the time I woke up, and the goosebumps are really getting really high now, and through that dream and through the process of it all, somehow when I woke up the next morning, I knew in my heart it's time to go. Whatever it was that I was supposed to do is what I felt. Whatever it was that I was supposed to do while I was out there was done. I don't need to do anything else. And I felt it was in my best interest before things get any worse that I leave. But I couldn't leave without first going up to that same spot where I fell flat on my face and singing. As crazy as that is, or may sound, when I checked out of that hotel room, I drove over, to the area, and then I got out, and I stood at that very spot, the exact spot that I fell flat on my face and could barely rise up. I stood there and I sang for probably an hour or 2 hours. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I've never felt so sad, embarrassed, humiliated. I could just go on and on and on. I never felt so awful like that in my whole entire life. And then I left. And can I tell you that I've never in my whole entire life cried as hard and as long? I mean, it's like 2,400 miles or something like that from Las Vegas to Ohio. Or I went, in my situation, I think I went, straight over to Pennsylvania. I've never been so confused in all my life. All of a sudden, my whole world has changed. My whole thought process has changed. I fell asleep during when I drive long time, rather than get a hotel, a lot of times I'll just sleep in the car. I like to do it once in a while, not too often, but once in a while I do. And I ended up pulling into a rest area, probably in Missouri, which I was probably approximately 45 minutes or an hour and a half, somewhere in there, away from Kingdom City, I think it is. I might be wrong, I'd have to look it up, but I don't have time to do that. Kingdom City, Missouri is what I think it was. I fell into the rest area, and I went to sleep, and I just cried and cried and cried, and when I woke up, I was still crying. It was like I was crying in my sleep. And as I drove away from that rest area, I got a text from the guy who gave me the threat, but it was a very pleasant one. Consumed with confused feelings about everything, because I knew he had his struggles with alcohol. So when he was sober, he was one man. When he was drunk, he was another kind of personality. So I seen it, and I held on to that text. And can I tell you that eventually, when I got up to Kingdom City, Missouri, if that's what it was, I think it is Kingdom City, I pulled on the off-ramp because I don't know if I needed gas or if I needed to use a restroom. But I took that off-ramp, and when I did, there was a panhandler right to the left of me. And his cardboard sign had something really cute written across it, and then on the bottom it was exactly what was in my text, exactly, word for word. And I'm thinking, who put this guy there? It was like, to me, it was like an actor or something that was there. And anyway, I asked him if he was hungry, and he said, yeah. And I took him out to McDonald's for a bite to eat, and then we started talking. And I told him what I saw in his sign and things. But can I tell you that when I went in to use the bathroom, I was blown away. Number one, when I got up to the top of the ramp, one thing I didn't tell you is the whole entire city seemed to have a glow about it. I can't explain it beyond that. It was just like this big, like a white loomy glow all over the city. And when we went into the gas station or restaurant where McDonald's was or what have you, I think is where we went. Somewhere along the line I went into these restrooms, whether it was at a gas station or what have you before we went to the restaurant. When I walked in to the female's restroom, they had Marilyn Monroe all over the bathroom. And I quick opened up the door and I said, "Who's hanging on the guy's bathroom wall?" And he looked at me kind of weird. "What do you mean?" And I said, "Who's hanging all over?" I said, "Marilyn Monroe's in here. Who's in there?" And he opened up the door and he said, "Elvis, of course." And I was just blown away by that, because those are the two images that I had in my bedroom, because I just liked Elvis and I loved Marilyn Monroe. So part of me in a way was kind of excited about being there because of that. It helped me to kind of feel like I was at home in my bedroom a little bit. And we went out to eat and we started talking, and I told him straight up about things that happened, and I told him I was transgendered. And he said, "Well, you could probably make out better panhandling anyway along the interstate than you could in a bigger city. So why don't you just stay here and we can work things out." And can I tell you that he taught me a lot? He just taught me so much about, I never had, it's an occupation. It's an occupation for people who are struggling and they have no other sources, they can't get jobs, they can't do this, that, and the other. And can I tell you, I've learned a whole nother respect for the people who do it, because not just anyone can. And with that being short, without talking too deep about it, he helped me make... So anyway, this guy is teaching me a lot, and we ended up going to the off-ramps, and I told him, I said, I can't just hold a sign. I love to play my guitar. I like working. I want to do something that I love doing. And I said, I always played my guitar for money for a lot of years. I said, I would rather, do you think I could get away with being on this off-ramp and playing with my guitar? And he got all excited. He said, I don't see too many people doing that. In the city they do, but not on an interstate. So mind you, I was on an off-ramp when people were coming up through, and I'm sitting there and I'm playing my guitar with a sign in front of me. So I'm going to say that I actually, not in the city, I never made out like in the city like I did here, but I actually made out pretty good, and I was making relationships as well. People were talking to me about trying to figure out, how did you end up here? What's going on? Why are you playing guitar, here versus wherever else? And I ended up meeting a sweet lady who invited me out to eat, and I got to share my story and things like that. I don't want to ride all this too long, but I was only there for like 2 days before an officer approached me, and he told me that I was not allowed to do that. And I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean I'm not allowed to survive?" He said, "I didn't tell you that. You can't do that here, and you got to leave now." So eventually I went over to the guy, because he worked on the other side of the off-ramp, and I talked to him about it. Because he told me, he said, if ever an officer does that, just be respectful and pack up and leave. Don't worry about it. Don't argue with him. But I was kind of disappointed in it, because obviously I had no gas money. I was out of money. I was out of everything. The only way I'm going to get back to Ohio, the only way I'm going to get to Pennsylvania, is by the generosity of others. And I don't know what else to do except for either hold a cardboard sign or play my guitar, is what I chose to do. So while we're thinking about things, we decided to go grab a drink or a bite to eat at a restaurant. And can I tell you that there was probably 5, 6, maybe even 10 undercover cops that went into the store, and you know what they did, or into the restaurant, you know what they did? They stood around us. Not like around us like this, but they spread out just to let us know that we were there, because the cop told me that I should, when I pack up, I should leave. He doesn't want me in their city. I guess he owns it or something, I don't know. His property. I wasn't allowed to be there. United States citizen, that's when I started getting my first dosage of of how amazing this country can be when you fall in hard times. Another mistreatment by an officer in my eyes, especially insulting me because of the fact that they followed us into this restaurant. And they were watching us the whole entire time. So we ended up going back to the hotel, and I told them, eventually I gotta leave. There was a lady that had mentioned about the possibilities of maybe starting a life there or what have you. But I gotta say, it wasn't in my heart. And I was offered an opportunity elsewhere, and it seemed like it would be a lot of drama and things, so I was just like, I'm not one for that, so I decided to leave. And my heart was broken. I ended up going back to Pennsylvania, and for anyone who knows me, when I was in adult entertainment, I went back to, my circuit, if you will. It's the places that I would end up going. So I could think. I had to clear my mind. And at some point, after I left New Jersey, I think it was in Connecticut or Rhode Island, I went out to a beach one day that's usually what I did when I was on the East Coast, is to get away and think. I would always go to the beach. This time I took my guitar. For some reason, since Las Vegas, I've really been keeping my guitar at least close to me. And I went out to the water, and I gotta tell you, it was the most refreshing experience of my life because I've never did it before, but I went out to where the waterway was just pretty much up to almost my guitar, and the waves were going back and forth, and it was one of the most beautiful, cleansing experiences of my life. But I just played my guitar and I sang. And I had to do that for quite a few hours. And I went back to my hotel rooms, and I continued to travel, and I was thinking, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? I mean, this totally just threw me for a loop, going out there to Las Vegas. Basically, I had somebody play a dirty trick on me, And what I realize now is because I was so consumed with all this junk, it really did mess up my brain. I'll be the first to say it. I was living in a whole nother world, an illusion of nothing but lies. I'm trusting this God that doesn't even exist. It's happening to me, and I'm having dreams just no different than if you're watching movies continuously, horror movies, and now you're having nightmares. Only because of my belief system is, about this God, this great God, and all this. I don't even want to get too heavy into it. But basically, that same God that I'm studying about is coming to me now in my dream and asking me to do things. And because of my desperation for a healthier life, I realize now is what I've been looking for. A healthier life, I'm going to follow through with it. I guarantee you now when I have dreams, I don't pay no attention to them. In fact, I'll wake up, sit up, and say I'm not paying any attention to any dreams anymore. Ever again. If I live 2 days or if I live 2,000 years, I guarantee you that if I ever have a dream, I will never respond to it at all. I will let it go in my conscience and exit stage left, as some would say. Be very careful about that, I would suggest. And I'm realizing that, to do it again, never. I've had dreams since then, occasionally. Dreams will come to me, and I totally ignore them. So when I came back to Ohio, I actually made a call to the owner of the place that I was staying at, who is also a very good friend of mine. I explained to him the situation that happened. Think about how much humility I had to do. Do you think I really wanted to call and say, things didn't work out? I don't know what else to do. I have nowhere else to go. There's 2 different places that I could go, and I gotta say, in all honesty, in the end, it's not healthy for me. It's just not a good match. It's not that I'm saying anybody else is bad. It's just not a healthy match. you know, and more so than not, no matter at either place or wherever I stay, I have to oppress a lot of the things in life that I love and I enjoy about myself. It's what you got to do to stay somewhere. Well, at times when you go through it for too long, you start realizing that it's not worth it in the end. If you can't be who you are, you just, what's the point of even breathing anymore? Because I'm pretty much stuck. And a lot of transsexual women that are out there, they realize, you know, the whole world's beating you up. What can you do? Up to this point, I've tried numerous ways. I mentioned about that, over 30 applications, over 100 resumes. I went on to countless interviews. And, you know, for everybody, let alone when you start to be considered sociably a little bit different than other people. Notice I say sociably because behind closed doors, people are people. Okay? Some of us have to be ourselves no matter what. And some of us are strong enough to do that and take a lot of abuse. One of them would be me. Okay? But eventually that abuse takes its toll on you. And that's how I got to share this story primarily with myself. So when I came back, I explained to him that I have no idea what is going on. I don't know what just happened. I just know what happened. And I do know that the entire time that I was there, which I said in other videos, and I don't want to stress on this, what was happening is I was being guided into being who the household as a whole felt that Tracilyn should be, rather than just being Tracilyn and being supportive and encouraged and loved and accepted for who she was. I became other people's idea of how a human being should be living their life. And I explained in other videos about no matter what I did, even the jobs I got, I was being laughed at. Physical fitness, healthy living, you know, entertainment, music especially, children, and a whole lot of other things I'm on fire about. And when I'm doing these things, I don't even think of death. I don't think I want to die. I think I want to live. I think I want to have fun and do all kinds of wonderful things. But guess what? Most adults that I have encountered with feel that at a certain age, everything that I'm passionate about has to go away because it's all games and that's it. They're not wise to the fact that if you're an entertainer, you are the entertainer, then you're also the image that other people see. And a lot of entertainers, of course, they're going to be, they watch what they eat, they work out regularly, you know, their dressing may be different than what you normally dress to go to your 9-to-5 job. You know, for me it's music, so I'm going to be making music and probably disturbing the whole entire household. It's not that I want to, but I'm going to be disturbing the whole entire household with it. So basically it's just going to keep boiling up and more people are not going to like you. And I've explained a lot about that a lot of people, before they even got into that household, they did not like me. Well, when I came back, I told him, I said, I've been doing this wrong simply because every attempt that I made up to there, I believe that I was called to start a rock and roll ministry. A children's rock and roll ministry, by the way. And every attempt I made, there were times that I had an amazing, very well accepted image in society. Pamphlets, I had all kinds of things. I had these great ideas. Let me tell you something, just before we go too much further. I got a lot to talk about here. I never wanted to go back to music as a business ever again. I did it for at least 7.5 years. By the end of that 7.5 years, when you realize you're doing everything by yourself, for yourself, you kind of lose the desire to move on forward. Things aren't expanding, there's no relief at all. You're kind of going like in a bulldozer mode. And you're doing it on your own, and it's like, what is the purpose behind all of this? And in the end, it's really to make a paycheck. I started losing my passion and everything, because the things that I love to focus on, I can't, because I had to be more concerned about doing all the business aspects, being a booking agent and all this other stuff. And I got to be honest, I don't like it at all. And eventually I might explain as to why. And I started realizing why through the process of this last 2 years or a year and a half, why that was a thing that I did not care for in business. If I had a business where I was met at least part way, where you get yourself out there and now you're getting phone calls, which I started to at the end of my career. It's not like I never got phone calls or never got gigs that came to me. But as well, when you're constantly having to call after people and keep calling and keep on chasing down things and re-explaining things and proving yourself to be a worthy entertainer and that people will like you and all, you gotta, let me tell you something. That's something that I could spend a whole entire day talking about, because basically all it is that you're putting together an image that's going to sell to the majority of society. But because every atmosphere is different that you play in, you can never really be one image that whole entire time. There was a time that I had a country image that I was out, because I liked country music and I felt that's a direction I could go as I mature and stuff like that. I feel differently now, but you know that the whole thing is instantly, we don't do country music here. Well, I do music that everybody else does everywhere. And I guarantee, I'd have to sell myself. I guarantee you that just try me out. Let me come in here and play. And now you got to keep proving yourself. So eventually I lost the country image. And I just told people I do classic rock. Do I want to do classic rock? No. I want to do Tracilyn rock. I want to do my music. And you think at some point in your life, something is going to begin to manifest. Something is going to begin to happen. Almighty God is going to begin to open up doors and all kinds of things. You believe all kinds of ridiculous things that never happen. So you're still stuck in that rut of always having, when you get new shows, always having to prove that you're worthy to get into that door. There's nothing you can do to, if I was a hairstylist, or if I was a mechanic. A mechanic I like to use because I know a lot of reputable mechanics that are outstanding. They're great with people. They know how to treat them. They give them amazing prices. And their work is guaranteed all the time. I mean, they really know what they're doing when it comes to cars. So here's an example. You have a garage. You are an amazing mechanic. All it takes is 1 or 2 people to come to you in their time of need, and because you met their need and you treated them amazingly and gave them an amazing price, they're going to go around telling everybody, and before you know it, and this is what happened to some of the friends I had, before you know it, they have so many cars out in their lot that they're working all the time. Well, in my situation as a musician, that was not the case. And some of you may be laughing and saying, well, maybe you weren't good enough. No, I was good enough. I was quite well known. At that time, I was, I explained other things. But what I want to say is, I never doubted that I was good enough. The problem is that I had to keep working in the areas that I can do, but I'm not passionate about. And I never figured a way out of the madness during that time, I used to try to find booking agents and promoters and all kinds of things, and they were the same way as the venues. It's like now you're trying to prove to that, and no matter what I did, I've done over 1,000 paid performances. I could show them all kinds of clippings from papers, from radio interviews to all this stuff, and it's like, for some reason, people didn't want to, they always had excuses. Well, we only do bands here, we don't do solo acoustic acts. To the point to where I actually got a guy that would book me at 1 or 2 places, and I'd always do it whenever he'd call me, all the time. I would schedule him in, and I would even reschedule some of my other places that I was friends with, because I wanted a relationship with somebody who did bookings. And he would usually take 2/3 of the show, but I didn't care, because through that show, I usually would end up getting other shows. And I was going in the right direction that I don't want to talk about now, but it was a direction that I really wanted to go. So I was always excited about that, but even to the point that I would be, I'm not really begging him, but yet it felt like I was begging him, please help me. I want to work all the time. I want to play my music and I want to focus on my music. And really at that time, I'm thinking big outside the box. I want to tour the world. You know, I'm thinking even in venues like that. I'm not thinking arenas and stuff. I'm thinking even in the venues I was doing, I just want to get on the road and not stop. And I just pretty much want to go around doing shows and make a living. I love the change. A lot of people who are on the road will say, well, I beg to differ. You're going to hate it if you would ever do it. Probably. I thought a lot of things differently when I was touring. I'd have to talk to somebody and work something out. But here's the thing. Check this out. Through my experience of touring the country and how I had to tour it, I would never want to leave the country. But I still have this need in me that I have to have a change of scenery. You know, maybe if I live somewhere like out in Las Vegas or in a hot climate like California or Florida, New Orleans, you know, kind of wavers a little bit, but I love New Orleans. But I mean, the weather kind of wavers a little bit. Maybe I would be content by playing the entire, because I used to play the entire state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland. I was doing all this stuff in my own power on my own. It was when I started to believe that there was a God and that He was in control. And He opens up doors. All I got to do is believe and do my part. Is when everything began to fall apart, decay and rot away. That's my story. I got to be honest, I have not met any other Christians who say the opposite. Who don't say the opposite. They always say, you know, these great stories about how, you know, God was there and, you know, whatever relationships happened or helped them out with their job. Not mine. Let me tell you what, mine is the complete opposite. I'm probably the only human being on this planet whose life deteriorated to nothing because they trusted a God that just it does not exist for me. I must evidently, maybe I didn't believe. Maybe I'm fooling myself. But anyway, I don't know how we got kind of sidetracked with that. Business is something, again, I'd probably love to talk about because I have other perspectives now that I've been going through a lot of these different things. But rest assured, I never wanted to go back into music as a business. The way that I perceived it, and I have tried, was getting involved in churches to do something within the church. There was one that gave me a wonderful opportunity. The problem was then no sooner was I there that this God that I thought was asking me to come out as a transgendered lady. And I got to be honest with these people, even though that I realized that through them I've been oppressed and stripped of just about everything that gave me a wonderful life, kind of. The only thing that was wrong was I wasn't doing my music and I wasn't being Tracilyn, the lady. You know, outside of that, I had everything. It was an amazing trade-off. To be yourself, to be me, and do my music, I lost absolutely everything else. Okay, now I became a dependent. And I don't want to get too heavy in the religion because you can look back on other videos and you can see and hear my perspective about what happened. But I will say this, I mean, I'm an honest person and they gave me a wonderful opportunity. By far, evidently, I was not ready at all. And obviously, the God of the universe was still working on me, calling me out to destroy me, evidently. And at that time, I loved that church so much and the people in it that I didn't want to bring that to them. You know, I'm thinking the whole church is going to decay if I stay there, so I better just go, you know? So I did what was right, I felt, for their sake. It wasn't that I was scared in general, it's because the feet, and I talked about all that, I don't want to ride that too much, but again, I did that because I cared about them at that time, very much so. I didn't know how to deal with this other part that I was dealing with being trans. But I did have opportunities like that and as far as the LGBT, I'm going to say that a lot of the LGBT churches that I went to, they're not modernized. They use a lot of old-fashioned traditional worships and services. And can I say boring, 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 boring? Boring. I'm going to say that very openly, very boring. And I wanted so bad to get involved, and I have attempted and I tried. And within them, at least the one opportunity, there was a lot of stipulations and things that I had to do in order to be a part of it. And I said, you know what, that's just not for me. I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that. I wouldn't want to hurt their feelings or hurt their reputation. And as well as other church that I have tried, and I even had other people pulling for me to try, and it just wasn't meant to be. So I'm thinking, well, God's calling me out into the Children of Rock and Roll ministry. What's going on? I'm watching these other programs. These programs are screwing up my mind. And I'm believing, well, if it wasn't meant to work out there, that God has a big plan and all this other stuff, which is a bunch of BS. Big plan evidently was to totally destroy me. So, worked out pretty good, God. Thank you. Let me see. So when I got back here, I realized that every time I made an attempt to get started here in Ohio, in whatever direction I wanted to go, if it's something I wanted to do to make money, as far as to like child care or whatever. I love children, whether it's child care or being, helping cleaning somebody's house, whatever it was that I was attempting to do, there was a roadblock. Can't do that. Can't do that. And I don't want to get too heavy. I talked about that stuff, but resources would be taken away from me. When it got down to the point that I would be working on my music, eventually it would come to the point, because everybody else is gossiping around, saying, why are you helping her? Why are you doing this for her? Can't you tell she's just using you? All this stuff. Meanwhile, I am a transsexual. And I really do have talent, and I have outstanding songs. Okay? And when they get recorded, and when I do performances, because I have the courage to live my life 24 hours, 7 days a week, me being me helps the entire community. The problem is we are so narrow-minded, and we think that if people aren't living exactly in accordance into the patterns of society's programmed idea of what we should all be doing, then all we're doing is playing around and goofing off and using people. Because people are blinded. I can't see. I'm stupid. Because I won't remove these shutters from my eyes and see what's really going on. And the bottom line is, my agreement with this person from the time I was on the bridge was that I'm going to get, I told him exactly what was going on, what I felt God was calling me. Evidently it was all wrong anyway. But that's what I felt. And every time I stepped up to do something, the resources, like the printer that I needed, I have nothing. I've been stripped away of everything that I have. If I'm going to start this over, I need help. I need to either have a job that actually pays a little bit of money, or I need to stay somewhere with civilized people that realize that Tracilyn isn't playing around. She's actually working, and because she's reinventing this ministry that God is guiding her into, it's going to take some time. Could take a few years, maybe longer. I don't know. But everything that I do effectively assists and helps what I've realized is the entire universe. All of us. When we're being true to our hearts and we're doing what's in our heart, not what some mysterious God is asking us to do, then we are at large helping the entire universe. We're not here to meet people's expectations. We're not here to be a society's function from the power structure above of how we all should be living our life. We're here to really be ourselves and enjoy life's journey by being supportive of each other and helping each other along our way. This gentleman always seemed to get it until other people would start interfering and messing up his mind. Then he'd start questioning as well. Well, at this point, when I came back, I cried to him. And I told him, I said, this is going to get ugly. Not me getting mean to anybody, but this is going to look ugly. because I have to reevaluate absolutely everything. And I knew at that point, everything I've been taught, everything that has been programmed in my head from watching these ridiculous ministries that wasted years of my life and made my circumstances a whole lot worse. I have to figure out what went wrong and how. And now how do I piece my life back together? This is going to take at least 2 years. I said that to him. It's going to take at least 2 years. And people who say, well, 2 years? Yes, 2 years. Because I've been diving into this, not to mention my whole life, being confused, but getting involved in Christianity and other things since the early 2000s, extremely heavy. I've never met anybody as crazy about it as I was. And I regret it. And I don't recommend it. In fact, I recommend being on the street for a season, not living on it, but taking some time to see the real truths of how the world operates. If you're going to live in this world, you need to live in according to the world's way, not God's way, because that is in opposition of how the world is, and you will be set up for destruction. And that's what it's all about. It's keeping people oppressed. It gives the people in power everything.